We think this next phase of drilling, based on the knowledge of what we have and the way the targets are shaping up and some of the trenching that we're doing, we think it's going to really give us incredible opportunities, not just on probability for potential discovery, but it's going to give us scale, the scale that everybody likes with this area. We've spoken to some analysts recently, and we've shown them these targets, and we've shown what we're learning about the project, and they love it. They have not changed their appeal to it. We haven't changed ours. Everybody on the team is very excited about it.
The Financial Survival Network. Now more than ever. The Financial Survival Network.
Welcome. This is Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. We're sitting down with Ivan Bebek, CEO of Coppernico Metals, for a major sponsor update. Ivan, great to see you. Hey, first, I know there's a lot going on with the company. Everyone's watching the metals prices, gold, copper, even silver kicking in till today, thinking, wow, this is the big move. It's happening now. What's your take?
Yeah, it's certainly started. My take is being 25 years in the business, going through, the 2000 era with the .com run in tech, and then watching it transition back to mining and metals and that run that went through 2012, and then seeing things like the '08 events. And we all know there's considerable debt and some tariffs that are affecting a lot of things around the world. The improved metal prices is the first major box that we should all be excited about, because that's going to start to affect from the top down some of the largest companies. We're seeing companies like Agnico Eagle hitting record prices at all highs on the gold side. We haven't seen a big move yet in the copper companies, but the copper price has recently come off $3.90 a pound in December, and it's pushing, on the futures through $5 a pound. My view is the cycle is turning slower than everyone is anticipating, but it's turning bigger than we've ever seen before in terms of the bull market that we're headed towards. In terms of equities, there's definitely a global issue with commodities, and copper is one of the main critical metals, not just becoming recently one in the US, but with China and everyone else and the electrification of the planet. My view with the economy is there is some concerns of a recession that is anti or counter copper. The tariffs did put a premium on US copper versus LME copper, which is trading less per ton than US copper. So we're just got to get through this first wave of the new administration as these tariffs take their place. And, no matter how the rules change or what's happening, it doesn't make it easier to find major copper supply or copper deposits. And there's going to always be that challenge, which is perfect for us as looking for copper as copper prices are anticipated to rise. What I'm really encouraged by is each quarter of high copper prices will really improve the bottom line on the larger companies and the producers. You're seeing debt get cleaned up. You're seeing share buybacks with some of them. You're seeing all the things that are notoriously, consistent with the start of previous bull markets. So I think we're absolutely there. The challenge isn't copper, it's quality copper. I think there's plenty of low-grade copper in the world, but it's a time crunch. How long will it take to get the low-grade copper or these, to build new mines and get that copper supply to match the demand? And that's really what's going to drive the copper price here in the next few years to come. As an explorer, you have to be careful here because copper exploration is very capital intensive. It requires quite a bit more drilling than most gold discoveries to really get that return for shareholders. And the bigger you swing, the more expensive it is. So in the case of Coppernico, we are in a tremendous position financially. We have capital into the middle of next year. We're finishing our first 20 holes and starting to really understand the major opportunity we signed up for, which is to go find a tier 1 copper discovery, something that could potentially make the top 10 or 20 copper mines in the world. There were shortages in front of us. So as an equity investor, I'm not worried about the share price. I can't control that in a soft equity market for copper or metal stocks, but I am extremely, extremely aggressive with strategy and building the fundamentals so that when that market catches up and when we can reevaluate or re-rate with a better copper equity market, we have some of the best things to drill in the world. And that's what we're working towards.
On that note, so what's happening right now? I understand you drilled 20 holes.
Yeah, we drilled 20 holes. This was our first look. We had a polygon that was designed back in 2018-19. And these holes, we had some great hits, like 19 meters of 0.5%. That's missing width. But we drilled a lot of, I'll call it in layman's terms, smoke. And we're seeing a lot of vectoring that's taken us outside our polygon. There's an area on the property called Furasso, which has 8 historical holes underneath a substantial trench. They certainly confirm the third dimension, and it's a deposit expanding target. It's our best target on the entire property. It's kind of what drove us, for the 9-year wait to bring this project online. We are working and making advancements towards the permits to get access to that area, and we would expect updates on that sometime soon, probably in the middle of the year here, going into the summer. And second to that, we are also trenching, and we're processing the data, which half of those holes are back. The rest will come back at the end of April. And what we see as a preliminary speculation to set the tone right is we see a lot of vectoring to some really substantial targets that are just outside our polygon, in addition to areas like Furasso. If you looked at our last press release, we found 2 new areas, Antipampa and also Tipicancha. And these areas we've been trenching on some of these areas as well as other areas in the project. And right now we're extremely excited with these projects coming to light. There's some very, very interesting findings that I think will, once we get results back in the next few months here, will really set the tone for the next round of drilling that we're going to do with this project. So, the question that I had and why it's been a bit quiet from us corporately for the last few months is, we wanted to know, is this system real and is it really big? And the answer is yes and yes. The bigger it is, the harder it is to find sometimes, but the team has done a remarkable job, and there's some very, very obvious, substantial multi-kilometer drill targets that we've been vectoring towards, which everyone will hear about on the back of the first round of results. The areas we haven't drilled yet, like Furasso and Neok, these are really, really, really robust outcropping targets with a lot of access to obvious surface mineralization and bedrock. These will be a big focal point going forward in the next phase of drilling, and it will expand into some of these other big targets that I've mentioned. But this project has multi-generational discovery potential. In the next few months, we'll see a lot of trenches from new areas, some of the outcropped areas we didn't have access to previously, and now we do. And we're advancing a substantial drill permit and increasing our polygon about 4 times the size of what it was, so we can drill all of these areas that I'm talking about and have access to drill as many as 200 holes with multiple drill rigs. So we're setting ourselves up for the next wave of drilling. We'll have a really good summer with trench results that will lead into other targets that kind of compete with Furasso on appeal. And we'll be drilling Furasso first. We'll work through those targets and see if we can start making these world-class discoveries we've talked about.
So everything that brought you here and that led you through 9 years of labor to get the permits and get financing, everything in place, you're still absolutely sure that you're on to something here.
Oh, it's in terms of potential, it's gotten better. I have a lot more conviction now than I did before we started drilling. And the first wave of drilling, we're all looking for those discovery holes, but where are you in the system? Is the system real? Is it there? And it's pointing us towards, we're close, and there's some very, very big targets, and we still haven't drilled the main targets that drove that exact equation of 9 years of waiting. We still haven't drilled that yet, and we'll get to drill that later this year is our goal, hopefully by the end of summer going into the fourth quarter. That's our time frame right now. That's subject to change. It could be better. It could be a little bit later. That's just how Peru works on the permitting side. But nothing has changed from the scope of it. On the negative side, it's just we see it there. We're finding new things. The new things we're finding are substantial. We got to work on more areas. We're also starting to work on a new area called Machu Machai. There's a program going there. It's one of our best footprints that we've identified in our 100,000 hectares. It's got the strongest copper and gold draining off that area. This is a very underexplored area as well. So you will see a series of substantial targets come. You will see an improved polygon. So we have access to drill where all of the drilling we've done is vectoring us. And you'll see us get access to some of the more obvious mineralization, such as that Piraso. But this is just the beginning. And if you know skarn discoveries, I know a few of them. One was Los Filos in Mexico. It was hole 72 before they really hit it and knew they were onto a 12 million ounce gold skarn. In some other ones, it's hole 103. In the case here, we have those holes already in an area that we should be able to drill later this year and expand significantly. Where we've tested and where we've drilled, it's given us incredibly valuable information, and we've shortened down that time frame where we don't think it's going to take 70 or 100 holes. We think this next phase of drilling, based on the knowledge of what we have and the way the targets are shaping up and some of the trenching that we're doing, we think it's going to really give us incredible opportunities, not just on probability for potential discovery, but it's going to give us scale, the scale that everybody likes with this area. We've spoken to some analysts recently, and we've shown them these targets, and we've shown what we're learning about the project, and they love it. They have not changed their appeal to it. We haven't changed ours. Everybody on the team is very excited about it.
Yeah. Well, that's what we want to hear. And the window is narrowing, and the opportunity is there. Hey, I'm holding shares, been holding them for years myself, and nothing has changed my mind. So as far as the next drill program goes, what can we look forward to there?
Yeah, so first we'll get the results out of everything we drilled. We'll make a clear presentation to the market about exactly where it's vectoring us and exactly those next steps. This should really come out in the next 30 to 90 days, the results within 30 days. And then the next steps will be quite formal because we're waiting for other data from trenching some of these new areas that we're going to want to be able to drill as well. And so that will be the first few months in front of us right now. And then secondly would be advancing permits, which they could come relatively quickly, but it is Peru and things tend to take time on the permitting side. Things tend to take time on the permitting side. And what I would expect on the Peruvian side would be to get to a point where we could have a drill turning sometime in the fourth quarter. That is a bit of a time for shareholders to wait to turn the drill, but it looks like we're going to have some really good catalysts from some of these new targets that are quite robust in the meantime. We've also spoken openly and considered getting a copper project in the U.S. And we've all seen a big shift in the U.S. towards the copper market itself and mining in general, with the favorable support to advance and fast tracks a lot of good projects. We'd love to have a U.S. Peruvian portfolio and something we could drill in the near term. And we've identified some substantial projects that we're in the midst of completing due diligence, but we're really trying to position the company so that it has at least two sombreros, in its portfolio, one in the U.S., one in Peru, before we see this big copper turn in copper prices and the copper equities. And to quantify the copper price, we all just saw the run in copper that I think was primarily driven off tariffs. I think if you look back to last May, when copper was $5 a pound on spot, that was a much different copper equity market than there is today. There was no tariffs involved at that time. And the appeal to own and invest, and we did a large financing in that environment, was dramatically different. I think that market's coming, but I don't think it's coming till the second half of this year. So if you're a copper investor and you want to be part of a major opportunity where you could have multiple major discoveries, we fit that profile. We're trading at a deep discount to what we think is the speculative value of what we're seeing and what we have as an opportunity. And we're not worried about that. We're more interested in about when we turn the drills, when we get to that point of really driving the catalyst in the company, what does that copper environment look like? Is it on track to perform perfectly in line with our strategy? And so far, I think it is. And as far as a U.S. copper asset, if we can add a substantial one to the portfolio, this would give us the chance to de-risk any permitting delays or risks down in Peru and give us something very local in the U.S. in a country that's really making advancements towards mining and making it more favorable. So I think we could achieve a very good premium out of a U.S. copper success story that we could add to Sombrero.
Yeah, and I think everyone in the sector looked at the president's moves to speed up permitting in the U.S. and drilling and actual building of a mine. That's probably going to spread around the world. It seems to me that's an inexorable trend. It's been waiting to happen because the electrification sounds great, but where's the copper coming from? I think there's a wake-up call across the planet that without mines, you don't get the copper, and without the copper, all your dreams, whether they're realistic or not, are completely unachievable.
Yeah, absolutely. The electrification pathway is real and it's not going to slow down. It's going to continue on. And if you look at the reality and some of the reports of how much copper is going to be needed over what period of time and how much copper is left, like some of the largest mines in the world are halfway mined. And not only is that an issue for supply, but it's the depth of how deep they're going to have to go to get the copper out. And so the copper price has to perform from a supply demand issue in terms of the quality mines. If you can find something like we're looking for a skarn, skarn's in a notoriously higher grade generally than most other copper deposits. They're tricky. They take a bit longer to find, but if you get them right, that's where you can make a substantial value creation for shareholders and share price and value of the opportunity. But in that case, I see a challenge in the copper supply issues for quality copper. I see that the timeline to bring these things online is heavily impeded by current ESG initiatives, various governments, and the US is certainly going to change that tone within the US because they recognize that copper is key as they've identified it as a critical metal to the US. And I think, as you said, we've seen a lot of impact on political geopolitics in other countries when the US has either gone left or right with its politics. And right now, it's going in the right direction for the next 4 years. And that gives us perfect timing to see a much, much, much improved metals and mining market that we think is just starting, albeit slow, but it's on the verge, I think, of really breaking out.
Yeah, it really has to. In order to get the metal that's necessary, the profit is going to have to be there because we know the risk isn't going down. So if the price doesn't go up to compensate for the risk, it's not going to be there. So it absolutely has to. I think this is just the beginning. It appears to be tariff driven, but it could be much deeper than that. And that's what we're going to find out later on in the year. Ivan, appreciate you coming on as always. Again, go to CoppernicoMetals.com, sign up for notifications. These ticker symbols in the US, CPPMF, in Canada, COPR. Ivan, happy drilling, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, and looking forward to a great second half of this year with permits underway, a lot of results to come, both from drilling and trenching, and a very exciting second half of the year. Thank you so much, Kerry.
The Financial Survival Network.